So did you have anything when you abandoned the boat?
Nothing. Well,
Nothing.
I was butt naked, and I was sleeping naked, and I ran straight out the door, thinking all the while that this was a very manageable situation. You know,
Right, just catch your breath
until I
and back.
opened that hatch, I was still under the mindset that this was something totally manageable.
Hi, I'm Emily on Sailing Vessel Temptress. A month ago, we posted a video about a boat that burnt down here in the harbor in Luperon, where we're staying, and today we're going to sit down with Brock, who is the owner of that boat, to talk a little bit more about what happened and what is the story and where Brock is now. So do you want to start by telling us who are you, where are you from, and just a little background?
I'm Brock Taylor. I'm originally from Texas, predominantly have an automotive and electronics background. Purchased Silver Star in January of 2017 and started sailing her somewhere around December of 17.
Mm-hmm. What kind of boat was Silver Star?
Silver Star is a 1978 Tartan 37 centerboard. I purchased it off of some late night crazy eBay auction that turned out to be a really good deal that they usually aren't. It was just a poor listing years before I planned on going on sailing. Just happened to cross my path, and I was the one fool that saw the listing and flew out and went to take a look at it, and it ended up being 10 times the boat that I thought it was. So I ended up winning it the next day for a pretty absurd price.
Nice. And you put a lot of work into the boat?
It wasn't terrible. I spent about 3 months on the hard, really getting it ready. It had some chain plate leakage that was mostly cosmetic, but it affected the hardware a little bit. It had just been repowered with a new windlass and new refrigeration, and the owner had just spent quite a bit of money, more than I paid for the boat in the last few years. So it really didn't need that much. It was mostly resealing deck hardware and some repainting and redoing the bimini and stuff like that. About 3 months of labor, and she was pretty good to go.
Sure. So after the hard, where did the boat go from there? Did you jump right into sailing or work up to it?
No. I like most things. I just I watched a YouTube video on it, and I figured that was good enough. So I took off in December of 17, in the middle of the winter, to head down from Virginia to Florida, and just figured it out along the way.
Cool. And where'd you go from Florida?
After I went to Florida, I stopped again in Vero Beach for about a month, and since I'd been on the boat in the middle of the winter, and it was pretty taxing. It was pretty stormy that winter, and kind of got my head around what the boat really needed. So I bought a few extra things and waited 30 days in Vero and got it up to snuff a little better, and started stepping on the outside. Most of it was in the ICW coming down the first year because of the winter. It was just too brutal. But started making some more trips to the outside occasionally and equipping it. And a month later, I started working my way through the Exumas, and then later that year back up, and luckily got to see, I think that year, before the hurricane rolled through and wiped everything out, of just a few months later after I'd pulled back in. So it was nice to visit that area before it got knocked out.
Oh yeah, in the Bahamas, you mean?
Yeah, up in the north.
The Abacos. Yeah, we actually went through the Abacos on the way back to Florida, and like the next month, it was like on the news we're seeing all this, and we were like, we were just there.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. So how long have you been in Luperon?
Just for the season. I came in from Turks and Caicos. I left late in the season again this year, which I promised myself I wasn't going to do. I got a late start this year, but still in a decent time frame. I guess it's been here 5 months now. 5 months. Yeah,
it's easy to come here and get stuck.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the boat still needed a fair amount of work. I developed a fuel leak. The tank needed to come out, and there were several other issues that cropped up this year that were pretty sizable projects. So I had planned on coming back last month and heading east and getting hauled out for 30 days and redoing a few things anyway. So the boat's, it was in a really nice shape and well equipped, but it was a 78, so there's always something creeping up around the corner trying to chew up months of your time.
Yeah. Well, so the boat, it's funny to hear you kind of talk about the boat in present tense, right? Because now the boat's gone. Walk us through, people watching probably saw the video of sort of the fire going, after several hours. Can you walk us through sort of like the day, like leading up to going to bed at night, and then when
Sure.
the fire happened?
I woke up. I just come back to the boat from the States just a few days earlier, and brought all my Amazon goodies for the season, and it took me a few days to realize what actually caused the fire. And it was all a part of that. It took me a while to figure it out, but went to bed about 11 o'clock that night, and just randomly woke up around 4 a.m. and didn't wake up because of smoke or any other reason. I just wake up. I'm not a good sleeper, and woke up, and I had been awake for probably 15 minutes sitting in the front, but I had the door closed, and it has an insulated door in the front, and the AC is running. It generates a lot of white noise, and you're really in your own world up there. I mean, aside from thunder, you're not hearing anything up there, which is kind of a little bit dangerous. It concerns me sometimes because it had such a perfect white noise from that little small 12-volt air conditioner that it just really masked anything that was going on around
and you were upwind too, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't smell anything.
I didn't smell anything. I sat there, I looked at my phone and checked a few things and was like, okay, I'm gonna go use the bathroom and go back to bed. And as soon as I opened the door, I was also really disoriented. I was kind of fighting off a sinus infection at the time, so I was really, really disoriented. And I'm going to blame that on why I made such horrible decisions over the next 5 or 10 seconds that probably sunk the boat. But I opened the door and just saw a glow at the chart table at a distance, and I hadn't even turned any lights on. I didn't even turn any lights on in the V-berth before I got up, so it was really dark, and there was just a flicker at the nav table, and as soon as I got my first breath of smoke, my stupid lizard brain kicked in, and I made a series of bad decisions that pretty much led to the demise of the boat over the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, so walk us through, like, step by step.
Well, it was only about 5 seconds from the point I opened that door until it was over.
So what did your lizard brain tell you?
Well, the boat had a lot of fire extinguishers on it. It had 5 and one argon, very large argon, right in a rack to the left of the door leading to the V-berth. Because this has been a concern of mine, there's a lot of electronics on the boat, and the wiring is extremely well done. There's a lot of lithium on the boat. It's very oversized and well done. But when you've got scooters and electronics and charging stations, it was all, there was nothing shady going on at all, but you never know when some little battery is going to light off. And so I had fire extinguishers everywhere, but as soon as I got that first breath of smoke, my lizard brain kicked in, and I saw the companionway, which was all shut because I had the AC on, kind of fighting the bugs at night. And my first thing was, I need to go get that companionway open so I have a way out, not thinking, I'm upwind in the V-berth. There's a giant hatch that I can go out of. If I would have stopped for 5 seconds and analyzed the situation, I would have just grabbed that argon extinguisher, held my breath, went to the fire, which is a very, at the time looked, 1 square foot manageable fire. Flooded that area and went back out the hatch and caught my breath, and probably would have stopped it right there. But that's not what happened.
Yeah. Hard to do that at 4 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
With a sinus infection.
I just thought, I just saw the hatch and all the boards were in and it was pulled, and I was like, I have to get myself an escape path, not thinking you've already got one out the front. What are you worried about? But it was shut and locked, because it was supposed to be raining that night. It didn't. So I just ran out I held my breath and ran through, and as soon as I opened the hatch, oxygen came in, and the fire went 4-fold in just a few seconds.
Oh,
and unfortunately, the position of the fire, it just, I wasn't willing to go back in really, except through the hatchway after it had flared up. And where the compartment where the fire started from my perception, I don't normally put anything inside that compartment except for books and CDs and cables and stuff like that, because directly underneath it is where all the oil storage is. So I don't normally put anything in there, but like I said, the previous night I came back with all my Amazon goodies for the season, and I was arranging things, and I ended up putting a couple things in that
just to
move things around until I got to the next day and really started putting things where they normally go, where the little charging station is. and one of those things was a little lithium powered battery welder. I initially thought that maybe my phone or my iPad had caught fire on the right side of the chart table, but it sits all the way, the right side of the nav station, but it sits all the way to the right, and the fire was clearly on the left side, coming, from that compartment where it was definitely coming from that area. And as I played it back through my head over the next couple days, slowly, 11 o'clock that night, before I put this specific thing in there. Is that what caused it? I don't know. But there's nothing in that compartment other than that. I didn't put anything else in there. There's nothing but the radio wiring inside there, which is all turned off at night anyway. There's the breakers off to all that stuff. So, there's nothing in there,
So this was a self-contained something that combusted.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's just something that had some cheap 18650 cells that just randomly lit off. That's the only thing that I can think of. And unfortunately, because of where I stored all the chemicals and the quarter berth being a storage compartment in the back, there was very little time once I made those bad decisions that it started moving towards those containers, and I wasn't willing to put there had been a couple people hopped on the boat to help me, give me some buckets, to throw on it after I'd exhausted a few fire extinguishers, and I wasn't willing for anybody to hang around for much longer because it was a tub of, all the nasty stuff you keep on a boat, the little extra propane bottles and acetone, all that stuff was in a bin right behind it, and the fire was just working its way back through the foam quite quickly. It went from this big to this big as soon as I opened the hatch to, this big in about 5 minutes, and it was working its way back towards that bin, and where the lithium was well beyond that, but I wasn't willing for one of those propane bottles to light off and, somebody's around it, even if it wasn't me. So I abandoned it pretty early on. I finally got a little bit of my wits around me and tried to go back to the hatch and rip it open because of my phone, and I could probably get to my wallet from up there. But unfortunately, the hatch was really well made with nice big metal handles, and I couldn't get it open. Yeah, I had one arm closed on it. The other one was open, so I figured surely I can get my hand underneath there and pry that thing open. But
because you had AC on, so it was
the air conditioner was still on at this point. Yeah, and everything was closed. So I was like, surely I can get that open. I tried, and I couldn't. I came back, and then later on, I did actually get it ripped open, but we had been fighting the fire for so long that the inside of the boat was completely filled with black smoke, and I wasn't even willing to jump down there through the smoke. I had already inhaled quite a bit of smoke, so I wasn't even willing to go in there to get my phone at that point, because as soon as I busted it open, it just started pouring out of there. So it was.
So did you have anything when you abandoned the boat?
Nothing. Well,
Nothing.
I was butt naked, and I was sleeping naked, and I ran straight out the door, thinking all the while that this was a very manageable situation. Until I opened that hatch, I was still under the mindset that this was something totally manageable. So, and I had all these extinguishers also, so I thought I was well equipped for the situation. So I was just, okay, give yourself a path, out of here.
Yeah.
Then I'll look down at it, analyze the situation, and go from there. And in that 10-second time frame, the fire had quadrupled in size, and all of a sudden, I wasn't willing to go back through that through the hatch. So,
Did you get your dinghy?
Everything changed.
So you were on a dock, or you were out?
No, I was an anchor.
Yeah. So you grabbed your dinghy and.
I exhausted the fire extinguisher I had outside, and then I started yelling to neighboring boats, if you had a bucket or a fire extinguisher, to please help. And a few people showed up and we started throwing buckets on it, but the fabric had really caught quickly, and it was the foam and everything had lit off, and it just became unmanageable. I threw 20 buckets on it, a couple small fire extinguishers, and it was getting close to that bin, like I said, that had all those chemicals and everything in it. And I was like, no, get off the boat. And then I cut the dinghy loose and hopped into the dinghy naked and went to the closest boat and got some shorts.
Nice.
I literally didn't have a single article of anything on me.
Yeah. So what was it like watching your boat go down? What were you thinking?
It was so early in the morning, and I was so out of it. It's just like watching a movie, really. It just felt like I was watching a video on YouTube or something from my dinghy, just like watching it. It was like perplexed looking at it happen, because it was, like I said, from the point where I realized it was a fire till I was outside was probably 5-10 seconds, and then 15 minutes later I'm in the water, just like, oh, well, there you go. There's that. Just sat there for a few hours and watch it burn to the ground.
Yeah, it really burned for a while there, and then we saw it go down. Then the next day, what happened kind of like after the sun came up? Kind of finally went down, I think.
Yeah, it burned for about 45 minutes. I think the video where you picked up was about 45 minutes into the fire, I would guess.
Something like that. I remember hearing it on the radio, and then we got up a little bit later.
Yeah.
It looked like people were helping.
Yeah, the Armada finally showed up, 20 minutes, I guess, after you started filming, and then they started...
They showed up and they ran away when they came back.
Yeah.
I remember them seeing them, be like, oh my, this, and they go back and come back again.
Yeah, they started pumping water into it. It wasn't going down. It had been burning for, an hour. It wasn't going down yet, and they started pumping in through the front hatch, and I guess it took on enough water.
Yeah, there's a moment that there's a big crack, I think, that we saw.
Yeah, and then it finally went down right after. You got the best time frame, because that was just when the fire made it back to the lithium. You can hear it shoot off
there was a big poof.
You hear the relief valves going off on but the funny part was I went to the boat next to me, and we're upwind of it, watching it burn, and the water was still coming out of the side because the air conditioning was still running. 45 minutes later, it hadn't even made it. The fire was completely engulfed, and it hadn't even made it down into the battery compartment yet. The whole 12-volt system was still on and working. The AC was still running. I was just watching it.
Good wiring.
Wow.
Good electrician work.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, so you hopped aboard another boat for a little while.
Yeah, my friend, I got some shorts from a neighboring boat, and I'd been working on a friend of mine's, Stefan's boat on Maui, just a few boats away, and so I started knocking on his boat and woke him up so he could watch it finish off burning down. So I'd been spending a lot of time with him recently anyway, and we had planned on sailing east from here kind of together, so I just stayed on his boat over the next week or so, maybe 10 days.
Did you have insurance on the boat?
I didn't. The boat was not insured. I had it insured when it was in the States, but I was kind of at that threshold of where the cost of having it insured outside of the States and the value of the boat, I was like, I don't know that this is really worth it. It was fairly expensive, and it was in that range where I was questioning. This boat I wouldn't do that with. It's worth a lot more. But, I didn't have it insured, and... I never imagine. I'm a really, really picky person when it comes to processes and wiring and stuff like that. I mean, it was Stefan's first comment when I got on his boat is that's the most ironic thing ever that you had an electrical fire because
perfect.
Yeah, he's like, because I had just redone a lot of things on his boat, and he was like, that's crazy. You probably had the best electrical system in the marina, and yours is the boat that sinks.
And where are we sitting now? How did we get here?
Yeah, this is extremely random. I mean, I had no, I didn't think that I was going to be back on a boat for quite some time. And I figured maybe I'd just go reevaluate things and go backpacking for a little while, this year or something. And Alex had sent me a message on Facebook Messenger saying that he had saw the video and that he had considered selling this boat. And as soon as I got internet 2 or 3 days later, because I didn't have a phone or any access to my accounts, and all the 2-part authentication was all turned on, so I couldn't get to anything. So as soon as I saw the message, it was just a random, thing. I had my cruising kitty saved up for the year, was about all I had left, and certainly not enough to buy an expensive boat. And he contacted me and basically made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And about 10 days later, we're launching Polaris.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was on the hard.
Yeah,
so
it had been on the hard in the local marina for about a year and a half. Yeah, and I think he had a little bit of a guilt of not using it, and it was maybe the video was motivated him enough to think that he wanted to offer me a great deal on the boat, and here we are, just a month later.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, cruising plans I know you talked about doing a little bit of work to this boat, but you're going to continue on Puerto Rico? The plan?
Yeah, I think the same plan. I mean, it really didn't even mess with the timeline that much, to be honest with you, because this boat didn't need that much.
You didn't have to move anything from your old boat to your new boat.
Did not. I don't have anything to move. I have far less clothes and gadgets to get rid of, and I don't have a fuel tank that I have to rip out of the boat or any of that stuff that was going to take a month. So basically redirect that energy towards this boat for the next 30 days, which it's already been a couple weeks, and continue on the original planned path, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's great. It's lucky, and it's fortunate and good planning, I think, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, to have some money saved up as well. So obviously going back, you kind of, kick yourself a little bit for putting something in the cupboard that shouldn't have gone there. Is there anything else that you would have done differently? Like, you didn't have anything to grab. Would you have thought to grab the phone and the wallet first? Did you have other things? Like, what did you not grab that you wish you would have?
I mean, I basically did everything wrong. I can't name one thing that I did correctly. If I would have had my wits about me a little bit better, I would have stepped back when I saw the fire, stepped back into the V-berth, and just thought, for 5 or 10 seconds, and I would have said, okay, I do have my backpack right there on the bed that's got my passport in it, and there's one backup phone in it. Grab that, put it up in the V-berth. Grab the argon extinguisher, flood the area, starve it of oxygen, go out through the hatch if it doesn't work. You can always open the boards from the outside, and evaluate the situation. So, no, I did everything wrong. The only thing that I had on the boat was the CO2 monitor and the V-berth. And there was no smoke detector in the main part of the cabin, which would have alerted me to it much earlier, and it would have been even more manageable than it already was. So, yeah, it was a series of stupid mistakes, but hindsight's 20/20, of course.
Yeah, I know. The next day, I remember somebody getting on the radio saying, "Does anybody have a fire extinguisher? Because I don't think I have one on my boat."
My!
I know. We went to go. We should probably check our smoke alarm battery. I took it off. There's no battery that day, so it's a good reminder sometimes, to just sort of check these things, and even knowing how to use a fire extinguisher too. Not everybody, you might have one, but have you looked at the label recently, and would you know how to get it at 4 a.m. when you only have 10 seconds?
The sad part is I'm not a panicky person. I mean, I generally am pretty calm under pressure, and I've even taken fire safety courses and stuff like that. So it's kind of sad to see, in a moment that intense, that you still make all the wrong decisions when I'm not even a panicky person, but still screwed it all up.
Yeah, you do what you can.
Yeah.
What would you tell yourself, like maybe a month ago, before this happened? Would you do anything different? Or what would you tell yourself the day of when it was going down?
Whatever you're thinking, do the opposite. Put a smoke detector in the main cabin, you idiot. On my van, I have one. Why is there not one in the main area of the boat? My mentality was like, everything's off back there, at night. I turned the whole DC panel off. There's nothing... the likelihood of something going bad is really low, and the air conditioner has its own zero gauge wire that's like run down with the windlass up to the V-berth on its own separate thing. So like the only thing that's on is in that room with me.
Yeah.
There's nothing on outside. I turn the master DC panel off when I go to bed at night. So what's the likelihood that there's just going to be some random electrical fire? The likelihood was really low, but there still should have been a fire. I mean, it's $16 for a proper a smoke detector. There's no reason not to have it. There's just no excuse. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had 5 fire extinguishers and still got caught with my pants down. Yeah. So
pants off.
Pants off. Yeah, with
no
missing
pants.
Yeah.
No pants. No pants. Do you need help right now? I mean, a lot of people, their first instinct is to say, is there a GoFundMe? Is there something I can do? It sounds like you're in pretty good shape.
I'm in pretty good shape. I feel a little bit guilty. Alex gave me an unbelievable deal on this boat. I have lost a lot of my belongings that, I'll have to chip away at over the next few years. But, things are going pretty well. I mean, considering I would say this is the best case scenario so far, and the local cruisers have been very kind, and people have given me money until I could try to get a hold of my bank accounts, which I'm still working out, but it's happening. So it's the community's been great, and everything's come together just about as well as it could be, considering what happened. So I'm very thankful to anybody out there that did help me that day that I don't know your name, that was handing me buckets of water while my boat was sinking, and whoever gave me a pair of shorts, and anybody else that helped out along the way, I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for telling your story.
Sure.
And hopefully it helps somebody out there, or it helps somebody at least have a something in their mind to think of if they're confronted with the situation again.
Yeah, I think it just goes with all of the things on a boat. Is just play through those scenarios, that you normally do. Everything about being on a boat is about processes, and thinking through everything, and talking through, what you would do in a certain situation to solidify it before you.
Yeah, especially if more than one person on board too. Like how to manage that.
Yeah. So play through that scenario of fire catching in every compartment of the boat, any compartment of the boat, and what you would do in that high pressure scenario, so you don't just do what I did.
Yeah. Well, now you're wiser, right? We all have those experiences make us wiser. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your story,
Sure.
and thank you everybody for watching. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. If you have comments for us or questions for Brock, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we'll try to answer them. We hope you all stay safe and have a great time out sailing or at home or wherever you are. Bye.